Ladies and gentlemen, I used to think that getting rich was all about luck, hard work, or being born into the right family. I believed that money came to those who hustled the hardest or saved the most. Everything changed when I understood one life-altering truth. Wealth starts in the mind, not in the bank. It's not the money in your pocket that makes you rich. It's the thoughts in your head. That realization didn't just change how I saw the world. It changed how I showed up in it. Most people are raised with a scarcity mindset. We're taught to be cautious, to save for a rainy day, to play it safe. We're told that wanting more is greedy, that talking about money is taboo, and that success is only for the lucky few. These beliefs become deeply rooted in our subconscious. And that's the trap. You can't create abundance with thoughts of lack. You can't attract wealth when you constantly fear not having enough. The mind is the soil in which wealth grows. If you keep planting seeds of limitation, don't be surprised when poverty takes root. For years, I carried limiting beliefs. I told myself that success was reserved for others, that wealth was hard to get and harder to keep. I played small. I stayed quiet. I followed the rules. But I kept seeing people who broke those same rules thriving, building businesses, living free, expanding their reach, and multiplying their income. That made me curious. What were they doing differently? Why did money seem to flow to them so easily while others stayed stuck? Then it hit me. They thought differently. That was the difference. Their mindset wasn't focused on lack, fear, or limitations. They believed in possibility. They believed in abundance. They believed they had something valuable to offer. And because of that belief, they acted boldly, made bigger moves, and took calculated risks. They understood that your inner world shapes your outer reality. So I started reprogramming my mind. I studied wealth, not just in terms of money, as a state of being. I stopped speaking from a place of, I can't afford this, and started asking, how can I create this? That shift alone opened doors I didn't even know existed. I stopped waiting for opportunities to appear and started preparing myself mentally for them. I realized that the version of me who would become wealthy had to think on a whole different frequency. Wealthy people don't just think about what they have, they focus on who they are becoming. That's a powerful distinction. They don't measure themselves by their current bank balance. They measure by the impact they're creating, the mindset they're building, the habits they're reinforcing. They know that the internal shift comes before the external reward. I began doing the same. I visualized abundance. I spoke prosperity. I educated myself on money. And most importantly, I believed I was worthy of wealth. Not someday, but now. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Old patterns tried to pull me back. Doubt crept in. Fear whispered in the background. But I stayed the course, and gradually things began to shift. Opportunities started to appear. Ideas became income. People entered my life who aligned with my vision. It wasn't magic. It was mindset. My thoughts changed my energy, and that energy changed my reality. One of the greatest lies we're told is that you need money to make money. That's not true. You need clarity. You need belief. You need intention. Truly believe that you are capable of creating wealth. You start seeing things differently. You recognize chances others miss. You speak up where others stay silent. Show up with energy and conviction that attracts others to you. This is what I want you to understand. The bank account doesn't determine your wealth. Your mindset does. If you can master your thoughts, you can master your results. That is the beginning of everything. That is when I got rich, not when the money arrived, but when the belief did. The wealth you desire is already waiting for you, but only when your mind is ready to receive it. I used to trade time for money like everyone else. I believed the more hours I worked, the more I would earn, and eventually, somehow, that would make me rich. But the truth is, I was stuck in a cycle. No matter how many hours I worked, I still felt behind. I was chasing freedom, but only digging myself deeper into a routine that felt like a trap. The day I truly started to understand wealth was the day I realized this money is not a reflection of time. It's a mirror of value. That shift in perspective changed everything for me. We're conditioned from a young age to equate effort with reward. We're taught to work hard, clock in early, stay late, and hope that someone notices enough to give us a raise. And while hard work matters, it's not what makes people rich. If it were the hardest, working people in the world would be the wealthiest, but that's not the case. Some of the hardest laborers barely make ends meet, while others who don't seem to work in the traditional sense earn more in a day than some do in a year. That's because they've mastered the principle of value creation. I started to look at what wealthy people were actually doing. They weren't necessarily putting in more time. They were solving bigger problems. They were offering something the world needed, something that had real impact. They understood that the market rewards value, not time. If you can create something that solves a pain point, saves time, improves lives, or enhances someone's experience, you've created value. And the more people you can serve with that value, the more income you can generate. This is when I stopped asking, how can I make more money? And started asking, how can I give more value? That question unlocked opportunities I had never considered. I stopped thinking like an employee and started thinking like a creator, whether through a service, a product, or a message. Value became my focus. I realized that if I could help one person solve a problem, I could help 10. And if I could help 10, I could help 100. Scale became possible because value multiplies, but time doesn't. Once I internalized this, I stopped limiting myself to hours in a day. I began building things that could outlive my effort. A single idea delivered the right way could earn in days what used to take months. And it wasn't luck, it was leverage. I learned that time is a tool, not a measure. You can use your time to build systems, create assets, and develop skills that continue to generate value long after the work is done. That's how wealth is truly built. The mistake many people make is thinking they're paid for what they do. In reality, they're paid for the problem they solve. That's why two people in the same industry can earn vastly different incomes. One is doing tasks, the other is delivering transformation. One is spending time, the other is delivering results. It's not about how busy you are. It's about how meaningful your contribution is. And that contribution doesn't always mean you have to invent something new. Sometimes it means delivering something familiar in a better way. Sometimes it means showing up with a unique voice, a new perspective, or a sharper execution. The value is in how well you serve others, how deeply you understand what they need, and how effectively you offer a solution. I started thinking of myself as a value creator. I stopped tying my worth to how many hours I worked and instead looked at how many lives I could impact, whether it was through knowledge, creativity, service, innovation. I focused on making a difference. And as I did, the money followed naturally and often unexpectedly. That's when I realized wealth was never about chasing money. It was about becoming someone who creates something that others genuinely want and need. When you make that shift, you stop living for the weekend. You stop counting hours and start counting impact. Your work becomes more meaningful, your confidence grows, and your income starts to reflect your growth. You feel aligned with your purpose, and abundance becomes a natural result, not a distant goal. That's when I got rich. Not when I worked harder, but when I understood that value, not time, is the true currency of wealth. For a long time, I set goals the way most people do. I wrote down what I wanted: more income, a better lifestyle, financial freedom. I was motivated, disciplined, and driven. I would start strong, feel excited, but then life would happen. Things would slow down, obstacles would show up, and eventually my goals would slip into the background. I kept wondering why I wasn't getting the results I wanted. I was focused, hardworking, and had clear intentions, but nothing seemed to stick. That's when I discovered a powerful truth. The wealthy don't just set goals, they build systems. That insight changed everything. Goals give direction, but systems create results. Wealthy people don't just think about where they want to go, they engineer how they'll get there. They build consistent, repeatable processes that align with their vision. They don't rely on bursts of motivation. They rely on structured habits and automatic flows that keep them moving even on the days when motivation fades. Once I understood this, I realized why so many of my efforts had failed. I had dreams, but I didn't have infrastructure. I had plans, but I didn't have a process. This is one of the most important shifts in thinking that separates the rich from the average. Goals are like destinations on a map. They show you where to go. But without a vehicle, without fuel, without a road, you never arrive. Systems are the engine that moves you forward. They are the habits, routines, strategies, and structures that take your intentions and turn them into action. Once I started designing systems, everything became more efficient. My days became intentional. My energy was directed. My growth became measurable. I stopped saying things like, I want to make more money, and started building a system that generated consistent income. I mapped out daily actions, weekly reviews, and long-term strategies. I tracked what worked and improved what didn't. I automated what I could and delegated when needed. My focus was no longer on the outcome. It was on building something that sustained the outcome. And this is what truly wealthy people understand. They don't try to do everything themselves. They build teams, processes, and frameworks that make their success predictable. I began to notice this pattern in every wealthy individual I studied. Whether it was a business owner, investor, or thought leader, they all had systems behind their success. Their businesses had systems for customer service, marketing operations, and growth. Their lives were structured in a way that supported their productivity, creativity, and health. Nothing was left to chance. They didn't just hope to win, they designed their lives to win. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking wealth is about a single breakthrough, one big idea, one perfect opportunity. The truth is, wealth is built through small, consistent actions done over time within a reliable system. A rich life isn't created by chance, it's engineered. The people who build wealth aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented, they're the most strategic. They create routines that serve their vision. They make decisions that align with their goals, and they repeat those decisions until they become second nature. And the beauty of a system is that once it's in place, it reduces mental fatigue. It frees up energy for bigger thinking. Instead of wondering what to do next, your system guides you. Instead of reacting to life, you respond with intention. This is how wealthy people multiply their impact. Their systems work even when they rest. Their assets generate income whether they're present or not. Their processes are designed to grow, scale, and improve, regardless of temporary circumstances. This shift in mindset also gave me peace. I no longer chased results. I focused on refining my process. I trusted that if I stayed loyal to the system, the results would follow, and they did. My confidence grew. My income stabilized. And most importantly, I felt in control. I wasn't depending on luck or waiting for external validation. I had built something that worked, something I could improve, expand, and scale. This is the power of thinking in systems. It takes your dreams and turns them into daily action. It moves you from wishful thinking to intentional creation. It transforms effort into efficiency and hustle into harmony. The day I stopped just setting goals and started building systems was the day I began to build real wealth, not just in numbers, but in freedom, clarity, and confidence. I used to believe success was something you achieved alone. I thought that if I just worked hard enough, stayed focused, and kept my head down, eventually I'd get where I wanted to be. Proud of being independent, of doing it all myself. But over time, I noticed something that shook my belief. I saw people with less talent, fewer skills, and less experience making progress far quicker than I was. They weren't smarter, they weren't working harder, but they were surrounded by people who elevated them. That's when I realized something that shifted my entire trajectory. Your network multiplies your net worth. The people you surround yourself with matter more than you think. They influence your habits, your mindset, your standards, your expectations. When I was around people who thought small, I found myself shrinking. When I was surrounded by those who feared risk, I started playing safe. And when I was in rooms where no one talked about growth, I stopped growing. It wasn't intentional. It was the natural effect of environment. We absorb energy, beliefs, and attitudes from the people closest to us. And if you're not intentional about your circle, you'll unconsciously adopt limits that aren't even yours. When I finally began seeking out people who thought bigger, everything started to change. I wasn't just hearing new ideas, I was being stretched. My conversations shifted from complaints to solutions, from fear to strategy, from how do I survive to how do I scale. Being in the right room doesn't just inspire you, it activates something within you. It forces you to level up. It makes you ask better questions. It reveals possibilities you never knew existed. Wealthy people understand this. They don't try to figure everything out alone. They build strong networks of mentors, peers, collaborators, and partners. They surround themselves with people who challenge their thinking, support their vision, and hold them to a higher standard. And most importantly, they invest in relationships with intention, because wealth flows through people. Opportunities come from conversations. Growth comes from collaboration. No one builds an empire in isolation. I started reaching out, connecting, and collaborating. Doors opened. One conversation led to a business idea. One referral led to a new client. One recommendation led to an opportunity I never would have accessed on my own. That's when I understood your next level is almost always connected to someone you haven't met yet. You'll never meet them if you stay in your bubble. You have to be willing to put yourself in environments where growth is normal, where ambition is encouraged, and where success isn't envied. It's expected. This doesn't mean you cut everyone off. It means you become intentional about who you give your energy to. It means you pay attention to who inspires you and who drains you, who challenges you and who distracts you. Sometimes The people you've known the longest are the very ones keeping you from becoming who you're meant to be. Not out of malice, but out of their own fear, their own limitations, their own comfort zones. You can't let their ceiling become your limit. That's why proximity matters. If you want to get rich, not just financially, but in wisdom, experience, perspective, you have to align with people who are already playing at a higher level. People who don't just talk about what they're going to do, but people who are doing it. People who speak the language of growth, who take action, who invest in themselves and their vision, because energy is contagious. And the right energy can accelerate your journey in ways that effort alone never could. One of the most powerful things I did was start asking better questions. Not, how can I do this on my own, but who can help me get there faster? Who's already doing what I want to do? Who's living the life I dream about? These questions didn't just lead me to answers. They led me to people. And those people became catalysts for growth, mirrors for my potential, and reminders that I wasn't meant to walk this path alone. Wealth isn't just built through strategies, it's built through relationships. Every major breakthrough I've had can be traced back to a conversation, a connection, a collaboration. People introduced me to ideas, resources, and shortcuts I would have never found in isolation. And that's when I got rich, not just in money, but in access, in confidence, and in clarity. I used to believe that success had to come from hard work alone, that if I just put in more hours, sacrificed more sleep, and outworked everyone around me, the rewards would follow. But I reached a point where no matter how hard I worked, I still felt stuck. I was burning out, not breaking through. That's when I came face to face with one of the most important lessons on wealth. The rich don't get rich by doing more, they get rich by leveraging more. And once I understood the power of leverage, everything changed. Leverage is the key that unlocks exponential growth. It allows you to multiply your results without multiplying your effort. The wealthy don't rely solely on their own time, energy, or presence to create income. They use tools, systems, people, money, and knowledge to do the heavy lifting. They create structures where their input is minimal, but their output is massive. That's the difference between someone who earns linearly and someone who earns exponentially. I had been working in a straight line, but the wealthy were operating on curves that kept climbing with less and less personal strain. There are many types of leverage, and the moment I started applying them, I realized just how limited I had been thinking. One form is people. The rich build teams. They delegate, they outsource, they empower others to do what they can't or simply don't need to do themselves. For a long time, I believed asking for help or bringing others in was a sign of weakness, but it's actually a sign of wisdom. The most successful people are not doing everything. They're doing only the most important things and letting others handle the rest. Then there's technology. I saw people automating tasks, reaching thousands through digital platforms, selling products while they slept. Technology was working for them around the clock. It didn't need rest, motivation, or even permission. I had been working hour by hour, day by day, while others were building systems that worked every hour of every day. That's when I started using tools that extended my reach, multiplied my voice, scaled my efforts. The return was immediate. I could be present in more places, serve more people, and create income without being physically involved every second. Another powerful form of leverage is capital. Wealthy people understand how to use money to make more money. Instead of letting it sit, they invest it. They put it into ideas, into assets, into opportunities that generate a return. I used to fear investing. I thought spending money meant losing it. But once I learned how money can work for you, how it can be a tool, not just a result, I stopped seeing it as something to hold on to and started seeing it as something to deploy. That shift allowed me to break free from the constant pressure of trading time for income. There's also knowledge leverage. The right idea, the right strategy, the right insight at the right time can save you years of trial and error. That's why the rich invest in learning, in mentors, coaching. They don't try to figure everything out on their own. They compress time by learning from those who've already done what they want to do. I started applying this by reading more, asking better questions, and seeking guidance from people who were steps ahead of me. The speed of my growth increased dramatically, not because I was smarter, but because I was leveraging wisdom that had already been earned. All of this comes down to one core principle: stop doing everything yourself. Stop believing you have to earn every dollar through direct effort. That's not how wealth is built. Wealth is created when you build things that operate beyond you. When you use your resources, your time, your skills, your ideas, your money, your connections to create systems that grow even when you're not present. That's the essence of leverage. It's not about working less, it's about working smarter. and multiplying your impact in ways that are sustainable and scalable. When I finally embraced this, everything opened up. My income rose. My stress dropped. I had more time, more freedom, and more control. I wasn't chained to the clock anymore. I wasn't trying to carry the entire weight of success on my own shoulders. I had built a foundation that could support real, lasting growth. And that's when I got rich, not just because I made more, but because I no longer had to do more just to earn more. There was a time when I chased money with all my focus. I measured success by how much I could earn, how much I could stack, how many achievements I could collect. And even though I hit milestones, something always felt off. The joy didn't last. Excitement faded. It was like pouring water into a bucket with a hole. No matter how much I poured in, it never felt full. That's when I came to understand a truth that changed not just my finances, but my life. Real wealth flows to those who align purpose with profit. In the beginning, I was only chasing outcomes. I was focused on the numbers, the recognition, the material wins. But deep down, I felt disconnected. I was busy but not fulfilled. I was achieving but not evolving. Then I began noticing something about people who were not just rich in money, but in peace, impact, and joy. They didn't just work for money, they worked through meaning. They found a way to tie their income to their inner calling. They weren't just building businesses or careers. They were building something they believed in, and that belief gave them limitless fuel. When I started leaning into this idea, everything began to shift. I asked myself, what do I actually care about? What problem am I excited to solve? What legacy do I want to leave? That shift in questioning led me to clarity, and with clarity came alignment. I began aligning my daily actions with something greater than just earning. I began creating value from a place of passion, not pressure. And ironically, that's when the money started flowing with more ease and consistency than ever before. Because when you're in alignment, you move with energy that others can feel. You become magnetic. People sense authenticity. They trust you, they resonate with you, and they're drawn to your work. And trust is the foundation of all wealth building. The most successful brands, movements, and entrepreneurs are not just known for what they do. They're known for why they do it. That why is what creates connection. And connection is what drives income, loyalty, and impact over the long term. I stopped asking, what will make me money fastest? And started asking, what would I do even if I wasn't getting paid yet? That question led me to discover things that excited me, problems I genuinely wanted to solve, and people I actually wanted to serve. I no longer had to force motivation. It came naturally. My work had meaning. My days had purpose. And my income became a byproduct of living in alignment with that purpose. This alignment also gave me resilience. Before, when things got tough, I wanted to quit. But when I found work that aligned with my values and vision, I had a reason to keep going, even when the results weren't immediate. That's the power of purpose. It keeps you moving when the external rewards haven't shown up yet. And when you're consistent from a place of purpose, those rewards eventually catch up. Another beautiful thing happened when I started aligning profit with purpose. I attracted others who were on the same path. Collaborators, partners, clients, supporters, people who believed in what I was building, not just what I was selling. And that community amplified everything. It created momentum I couldn't have created alone. Because when your mission is clear, the right people find you. And together you grow faster, deeper, and stronger. I realized wealth is not just about how much you make. It's about how deeply you live. It's about knowing that your work is making a difference, that you're not just taking up space in the world, but creating value, leaving impact, and becoming more of who you're truly meant to be. That's a richness no number in a bank account can replace. When I finally understood that I didn't have to choose between doing what I love and making money, that the two could coexist and even enhance each other, everything changed. My energy, my strategy, my results. I was no longer chasing money. I was being pulled by purpose. And the more I leaned into that, the more abundance flowed into every area of my life. That's when I got rich, not just in income, in intention, impact, and inner peace. Everything changed the moment I stopped chasing money and started understanding what truly creates wealth. It wasn't luck, talent, or working endless hours. It was mindset, alignment, systems, value, connections, and leverage. I got rich when I understood that wealth starts in the mind, not the bank. That money is a reflection of value, not time. That goals alone aren't enough without systems to sustain them. I got rich when I surrounded myself with the right people, when I stopped doing everything alone, when I allowed purpose to guide profit. Wealth isn't a destination. It's a mindset, a daily practice, and a way of seeing the world differently. The moment you begin to think, act, and believe like the version of you who already has everything you desire, your reality begins to catch up. Don't just work for money. Build a life that creates it naturally through who you are, how you serve, and what you believe is possible. Because that's when you truly get rich, not just in your bank account, but in your life.